Okay, we're going to try to make some felted soap. We need a few things here. We need bars of soap, of course. I've got the felt, or fleece rather, that I'm going to wrap around it. This is raw wool that has been treated and dyed. I also have 2 bowls of water here. I have a bowl of water that's hot. It's as hot as I can put my hand in comfortably. A bowl of cold water. And then I also have a towel because this can get a little messy. I'm going to take out one of my bars of soap. I'm just using a little one for this. And then I'm going to take some of my roving, and I've got a nice piece here that's pretty long. And what I'm going to do is try to break it off. And if you hold your hands really close together and pull, it won't come apart because this is the length of the hair from the sheep. So you move your hands further apart and you pull. Sometimes you have to keep going a little further apart. There it goes, and it starts to slide apart. So now I've got a piece that's about, I'd say this is about 1.5 feet, but I'm going to stretch it out first. So I'm going to do that thing that I just did, holding my hands far apart and pulling until the fleece starts to slide, but I don't pull it so far that it breaks. So what I'm trying to do is stretch this out so it's just a little bit longer. So now comes the part where you have to wrap it around your bar of soap. And I'm going to make it a little bit wider by grabbing either side and just pulling apart just a little bit. Doesn't completely come apart. And now I can lay it on top of my soap and wrap it around to the other side. And then I'm going to change angles because I want to make sure I'm covering the whole bar. I don't want any open ends, right? So I've got it wrapped around there. I've got a little bump here, so I'm going to wrap a little around there. And I can see a little bit of the soap peeking through right there. So I'm going to wrap some around there. Basically, I'm going to use this whole piece of roving and just keep wrapping it around until I feel like I've got it pretty evenly covered. Doesn't have to be perfect. And then I've got this little bit here. I'm going to try and like tuck it underneath so it'll stay in place. So there's my wrapped bar of soap. I'm not going to let go of it. Here's where the water comes in. And I'm going to pick up my towel because, as I said, this might get messy. So from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to touch this water. Yep, it's still pretty hot, but not so hot that I can't put my hands in it. And I'm going to stick this in it. Some bubbles are coming out. I can see some bubbles on the surface. So I'm going to kind of squish it a little bit until I see all the bubbles go away, until it's really good and soaked. And then I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to squeeze it out. Squish, squish, squish. It's looking pretty messy right now. Back in the water. And I'm trying to make sure that it's sticking to the soap so that the wool isn't sliding around. And I'm also trying to make sure that the wool is sticking to itself. Sometimes it helps if you put it in cold water, and the cold water shocks the fibers. It's kind of like when you jump in a swimming pool that's been really cold and you weren't quite expecting it. It's a bit of a shock, right? So this shocks the fibers sometimes. And we're just going to keep doing this and keep doing this, maybe going back and forth from the hot water to the cold water until it starts to felt. Okay, so we're going to have to probably do this for like 10 minutes or so. It's still felting away. I just put it into the cold water bath, and I want to show you a little something different I'm going to do. So I'm still doing this, like squishing all the water out until there's some soap bubbles showing up in the outside. And it started to felt, like it started sticking together pretty good, but I want to help a little bit. And instead of just squishing, sometimes I'm going to do this instead. So I'm going to soak it, take it out, squeeze some of the water out, and then I'm going to rub it between my hands. Not too hard because I don't want to rub it all right off the soap yet. But rub it the way you would rub a bar of soap on your hands. This friction is really going to help stick these fibers together some more. because we need the wool fibers to stick to each other and shrink just the way a wool sweater would in the washing machine in order for this to really felt up good and make a nice felted bar of soap. So here's my bar of soap. It's still not done, but it's definitely getting better. So now that I've got 2 nice bowls of clean water, this one's as hot as I can get my fingers in without it hurting, and then this one's as cold as I could get it. I'm gonna go back and do this some more. So I put it in to soak, and you can see it doesn't expand as much. It's not holding as much water. It's still holding some. That means the felting is really starting to work. And now I'm gonna do this a lot, rubbing it back and forth instead of squishing quite as much. And I'm gonna turn it, make sure I'm rubbing all the sides, because there's a top and a bottom, and then there's 4 sides on this. I wanna make sure I'm getting all of them. The funny thing about felting is it seems like it's not gonna do anything for a really long time. It just seems like, gosh, it's not really working. And then all of a sudden it starts to work. And once it starts to work, it goes pretty fast after that. I think we're done. Back into the warm water. Oh yeah, it hardly moved at all. Look at that. Give it a squish. I'm gonna squeeze as much water out as I can. And of course there's gonna be some soap that shows up on the outside because there's soap on the inside. And that's it. So now what I want to do with my newly felted bar of soap is find some place for it to sit and dry. I'm going to find someplace outside, someplace that is getting some good sun. I found a nice spot outside. It's sitting on a table out in the sunlight where it can dry.